There we go. Core Web Vitals.
What are they?
What are they? What's vital, dude?
What's core about them?
It's been vital this week, actually, fellas. Anything? You guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What's been vital to me is putting landing pages together. I guess I was in the mountains, so I knew I was gonna pump that out when I got home. So we got people asking for it. So
yeah, no, that'll be good. Next week will be good. I think we're doing Thursday and Friday, right?
Yeah. That's the plan. Yeah, so we can hit up the UK people, give them some value, and go from there.
You know, I was going through the whole process with some people, like what we're going to be doing in September at this event. And within like an hour of going over this process, I got a message back and someone had identified a new segment for their website that they didn't think existed. And it's a segment that goes completely off of what they saw their website as. And it's literally going from females in the 30-year range to 40, maybe 50, to males 18 to 24, bro. And so like there was all of this money on the table, dude. Just like sitting there that no one had identified because no one had taken the proper steps to look at the first part of what every campaign should be, which is understanding who wants to buy the products you have, right? And it's not the only campaign I've seen like that lately, because I think a lot of SEOs are still jumping into like, you know, we have Core Web Vitals on the title this week, but why?
What are Core Web Vitals for anyone that doesn't know, Mike?
So the main ones, like when they talk about it on the developer site, they talk about there's a lot of them here, right? But the main ones are
umbrella. Like, what is it? I know it's a bunch of stuff. Overarching, what is Core Web Vitals?
If I came up to you, I'm like, what the overarching, the way I would explain it is user experience and the way the user interacts with your website. Because what they're measuring are like LCP, which is largest contentful paint. FID is first input delay, and then like CLS is cumulative layout shift. So cumulative layout shift means essentially when the page loads, if I go to click, like we've all been on slow websites, right? If I go to click on like a menu item, or I go to click and fill out my email, and then all of a sudden as I'm clicking, an image loads that wasn't predefined, and all of a sudden like everything moves down or to the right or to the left, right?
I've seen that with a bunch of, if anytime I try and check out on a website, it's always a complete cluster. I don't know how many times I've said, I'm gonna do this next time I'm at the computer. You know, I'm sitting on the couch, don't want to get up. But yeah, UX, if I were running a ton of e-com that I owned myself and ran myself, I would solely focus on the UX of the checkout process. So I can't imagine how many people that larger companies have lost, you know.
Oh no, it's crazy. I mean, really, like if you think about it, okay, let's analyze. Do they really care that your website, like how much do they care that your website is actually loading slowly? And if an image takes an additional 2 seconds to load and it loads up, do they really care about that? Or do they care about quality? Like knowing as an SEO, do they care that a user now is, I get pissed. Like if I try to do something and something slow,
they
like
care that a user clicks back to Google and
well, there's that.
Doesn't like your site. Yeah.
There's that, and it's easy for them to track that. Like if they've been collecting data for 10 years, and they realize, and so one thing important to understand with Core Web Vitals is what the Crux report is, what the Chrome User Experience report is. So the Chrome User Experience report, it is all the data that they collect from like Chrome and things that are built on Chromium and things like this, right? It's all the data. What's that?
Almost everything now.
Well, dude, Edge is built on this. I mean, Brave is built on this. Like I was talking to someone yesterday, I'm like, don't underestimate the data that they collect and that they're building into profiles. They're building profiles for all users. They're building profiles for all websites. And so just because you're not in an account, you're not logged in, does not mean that they don't understand a lot of data about you. And if you go into even Brave, like you'll see that you start using YouTube in their like browser and you start protecting it, or you're in like Chrome incognito, they will still deliver a personalized experience to you when you're
My
not
kids
logged in and
always
when you're
watch.
incognito.
Yeah, my kids always watch YouTube. In a logged out, manner. And I'm like, make sure you log out because I don't want your suggested crap coming up on mine. But if I go into it on a computer, and I'm not logged in incognito, it will pull all that crap in because they know we've watched it on the IP.
Yeah, no, I mean, and when you look at it, like what it's doing and what it is, you start to realize, okay, so they want a stable platform for the user to interact with. That's what cumulative layout shift is about, right? They don't want people having to like move their mouse around and try to chase like a navigational link. They want to be able to have the user. I mean, if you think about it, they want to give the user, it's empathy. They want to give the user what they want when they want. It's context, like we've been talking about. It's like what we're doing in September at the event. They want to be able to measure things on a solid platform also. So it's also data collection. If they have like a bunch of slow sites, they're collecting weird data because now that the timing is all jacked up. Like when people are actually able to navigate, are people coming to this page, staying there, are they moving? So that's one thing. But then the goal for them is money and user happiness, right? So paying attention to anything that makes the user happy and fulfills what the user needs at the time is extremely important. And all of these core web vitals that we'll get into are based around interactions that can also affect other user metrics on site. So like the loading of a page and a visual stable platform, like Fletch, like what's it make you think of? Like if a user's on your site, what does that affect for that user that might be an actual factor that they could care about that we don't even think about that they might be monitoring on the website, right? Like is it there's a creative conversation here because
yeah, like so one of the things that like as I got into marketing online and I started kind of doing this stuff, I came out of a like face-to-face kind of sales role that I played for my own construction company. So we did the project, but I also was sitting down at a kitchen table with like actual people. And you get to understand the feedback. Like if you say something or ask something, you can kind of tell by body language and all these kinds of things. And so then by proxy, you can begin to understand more about where they are and what they like to hear about, what they might be interested in, and these kinds of things. And with the way that data is collected on Chromium based platforms, Google is using that as a sort of proxy to understand the conversion process to continue to send the right sales guy out to talk to the people who are interested in this kind of thing, that have this kind of profile about them. Some people just want the numbers. Some people are all about having their house be more comfortable. Some people are all about the resale of their home. Some people are all about the indoor air quality of their home. And in a sales situation, you ask those sorts of questions and begin to kind of find, these people are most interested in this. So this is what I want them to want. And then I help them justify it. That's kind of a conversion framework that I use. But this is just a data collection method of what salespeople have been doing for a very long time. And
I love that you said it that way because I always say, and I truly believe that everything that's ever been done by Google is a way to, it's all about user experience and it's a way to get them to the end goal of understanding empathy. Mm-hmm. Because once they understand empathy and they can measure that and they can create that and they can utilize it or whatever, now they can start to deliver exactly what people need at that time.
Well, so think about that in the context of personalized search results. Mm-hmm. It's essentially sending the right salesperson to the right project who's really capable of speaking about indoor air quality. That's really the thing that they know most about. Maybe there's a different person that's mostly about numbers. And if they've got a profile built on the people who are considering buying, then they're going to see more and more of the stuff that's about numbers or about the health of your home or about resale value or whatever it might be, right? And it it makes so much sense that it's a little shocking that it's taken a while for the conversation to get to the point it is from the, our side of things, in really saying, the better we understand the people who might want to look to buy our product, the better our website is going to perform for people like that. Like we've actually taken time to understand what they are about, what they want, what they need. And we've tried to tailor our content in such a way where that's what they get when they come to our website, that experience, really. So,
and that's extremely important. Like I've been talking to Hugh, I've been talking to him about some of the context stuff, and we're going to go into this a lot in September, but context, like not only from the ranking standpoint, but we'll call it segmentation of users, segmentation of content, segmentation of monetization is extremely important. You leave so much money on the table if you don't understand. It's like we mentioned with the new, some of the stuff you're going over, I think is extremely important. Like in September, I think is extremely important for everyone to start with, whether they're doing mass page spam or they're doing a tiered structure or a single website. If you don't start in the right place and you don't optimize with the right process, then you miss and you leave so much money on the table. And that's really what NFG's always been about, is maximizing revenue through like digital currency generation. I mean, it's not even SEO. It's literally just trying to make as much money to better the world for yourself, family, friends.
It's getting the most out of what you've got,
Yeah.
Which from a PBN perspective, like the classic SEO gray hat guys, you throw up a PBN that's, vastly unrelated in relation to context, and it serves no purpose but to push the ultimate site or sites. And you can make plenty of money doing that back in the day, but you were still leaving a ton of money on the table because you were not optimizing it for conversions, which in turn, in the long run, in my opinion, hurts your SEO as well. So when you start thinking about every property that you own that is in your Namecheap account should be monetizable. Imagine if you get, I know I probably don't do this enough, but imagine if you earned $20 a year from every domain name in your Namecheap account. How much extra revenue would that add, to you on an annual basis? Now, take those and get it up to 100 or 200 a year, which isn't a lot of money per month, per day on that type of basis, but so it's very doable. So, but if that small tweak, utilizing your current assets that you have in your portfolio, that, in my opinion, is what NFG has always been about, squeezing the most juice out of everything that you can.
Yeah, this is interesting about Brave. Like the important thing for people that, Brad mentioned, I think Fletch did, I think I did. These things are built on Chromium. Like Chromium is the engine.
Same thing with Epic. Epic is supposed to be extremely, it's probably a safer choice than just, and in fact, I know it is because of the pop-ups blocked, and I can do certain stuff.
It is
in Chrome. I can do certain stuff in Chrome incognito that I cannot do in something like Brave or Epic because it blocks more stuff. Like pop-ups for a chat or something like that. Fuck, I gotta go over to, if I'm trying to be very secretive, but I need to hop in a chat for a specific site. In Epic, I'll have to close it down and log in Chrome incognito because they don't block nearly as much stuff. So I would say it's further down the spectrum, but it's still, they're getting your data.
They don't, you have to, so it's important to realize that when you use any of their products, and their products power a lot of different stuff, you've given them permission to collect data and store it about you until you opt out of certain things. It's not a opt-in type of thing like a Nielsen panel. And they do buy data from Nielsen. Like they share data with all of the, clickstream data is something that I think SEO should really understand. Like, how does SEMrush have traffic stats? How can I go in and look at your traffic stats at your referrers for your website if this information is not available? And if I can go look at your referrers through different tools, what can Google see with the data collection and customization that they do? So it's really important to understand that there are privacy tools. Like you can take steps there by changing your IP and things like this, but there are things that they can see through no matter what. And so that's
right?
what's that?
Google Fonts is a big one, right?
That was what I was getting ready to say. Is like people are take all these precautions to try to mask their identity when they're visiting whatever. And if the site is using Google font, the server knows that packet is getting delivered to the IP address because it was requested by your browser window. So
no, if you just open up the network tool in Chrome and move around a website, use a form on a website, you start to understand what they're able to see. I mean, you can see what they're seeing in your developer tools.
They can, and they get a few pieces of that data. They can triangulate like really closely to even know who the person on that IP is, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that as I got more and more into that, I'm like, well, like, so a lot of times like mobile, I use DuckDuckGo. I use 1.1.1.1 as a a proxy for my VPN and my name server, or my DNS lookup. I consider Google, right, and so I'm going to go with their competitor. So I use Safari a lot because they're not likely to share data the same way other.
Apple is more secret. I'm actually waiting for Apple to purchase DuckDuckGo. I think that's inevitable.
I think that would make sense
for them. In line with their culture
decision.
Well, the lack of the renewal of the contract with Google is a huge thing. I mean, the search contract.
How much did they pay a year to be the?
It was like billion. I mean, it was a lot. I don't remember. I saw the stats maybe a week or two ago. I don't remember what it was, but it was huge. And the fact that they don't have that anymore is a giant thing, especially with what's going forward with a push. Google delayed, and it's funny because they delayed like the third party data like ban on their platforms for a year after this announcement. Like, there's just some interesting stuff there. Like, well, maybe we don't have the monopoly we thought we did right now. Maybe we should delay not using third party data.
But is the moat being eroded away? It would be the question. And how long?
What's that?
They still definitely have it.
Oh yeah.
But
no,
how long would it take?
Delayed.
Yeah, how long would it take for Apple if they got in the game, or how long is it going to take for Microsoft to erode away at that moat? I mean, Microsoft already eroded away at it quite a bit, but it just depends on how much they want to focus on it. The other companies and the search results. I can go to Bing and the search results might suck. I'm like,
well, and that's what
copy and paste it into a Google search.
The search. The big thing about when people come to me and they say, "Well, I search in other places and it really sucks," I'm like, "Well, we talked about this, Brad, right? I think the other day. Why does it suck? Like, where do you search all the time?" And they're like, "Well, I'm not logged into an account when I search for my stuff on Google." And I'm like, "No, but you always use their platform and you use their services. You use their Android stuff. You use everything, and they
Google
build a profile
on your phone." Yeah, exactly.
And so, you mentioned PBNs, cumulative layout shift. Like, let's talk about cumulative layout shift and how this might affect and how it might help them actually determine like when a PBN is in use versus not and things. Like, when you start to look at these factors, like the cumulative layout shift and the first input delay, and then you put it in context with like, okay, if I'm doing network marketing, can I really afford to be on that crappy host with that really crappy theme? Or should I be doing something a little bit more like a money site, kind of like we talk about in NFG? Everything should be treated like a money site. How does that affect how you build a PBN at that point when they're looking at things and talking about stuff? And we know they have the data. The fact that they can see how the website shifts when someone's on the website should be a big indicator of how much data they can collect, okay? These core web vitals are just like the tip of the iceberg that they've said, look, we're going to like start looking at this stuff, right? So it's important to read between the lines or underneath the water here. And what does this mean for a PBN? What do you guys think?
Well, I guess a while ago, I was kind of tasked with what, like the last big training program I put together when I was in OMG Machines, was about this. It was about, it was like the title was like building a quality site base for white hat SEO, right? So whatever you want to do with the terminology. Yeah. Right. Yeah. David Mills right there. So, so anyway, I kind of pulled that apart and tried to understand what it was about. And then I also heard a guy named Roland Frazier who works a lot with Digital Marketer. And he spoke at one of our events that we hosted in Las Vegas. And like one of his big things he does just as like kind of a 30,000 foot view is he likes to take his expenses and move them into profit centers. And so things that would normally cost a business something, if you can turn that into something that makes your business money, it's not like an incremental, it's a massive shift, because
you know
you actually can afford to do more and more of that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Amazon is the absolute best. AWS, they did it with that. And now shipping, they're taking that over. Turn your largest expenses into your biggest money makers. So it's interesting. Yeah.
And so when you consider, like you talked about, like all the stuff in your Namecheap account or all the websites that you've got up and running and all that kind of thing, if those now are not an expense, they're a profit center for you, then how many more can you afford to buy and run?
Infinite.
Like how much easier is it for you to make a decision to put that on a better host when it's making you money, right? These are all the
and that's the whole point. And what you said, like not only just making it a profit center, but a big focus of us has been like lowering costs over the last 6 years. And we've focused on lowering our costs for long enough where our percentages are so much different than the majority of the industry out there that I can confidently tell people, bring me on a campaign and I'll make you another 20% on it. Easy, and that's truly how I think of it. And I think that's how businesses should be run, honestly.
Well, it makes it easy to pitch SEO as well.
Yeah,
because you can come in at any mark, and
if I can make you 20% more, and I'm charging you 10% for it, then it's like
that's my point.
It's a no-brainer to say yes to, right?
It's like the Macklemore song. What up? What's your budget? I've got follow me.
This is a big question. I'll read it. It might cover some faces, but just mine. I go like this. Do you care about Google knowing your infinites are from the same owner? For instance, Wayfair has a bunch of company website properties interlinking, and they do. It's interesting. Like you can see a lot of major brands, and especially in e-commerce, the 08 method, all the subdomain stuff that we've gone over the years, like all of these things are part of their tactics in the strategy. And the strategy of like a mini or an infinite is like, you have a brand level. You do have a brand. And if you are associating different domains in a single brand, and I'm hoping I can get Ted to talk about this a little bit in September, to be honest, because he has like very similar ideas to Brad and I and Fletch and stuff when it comes to like,
I have no ideas. I just copy everyone.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only way to do it. Multiple websites, surround, like built into a single entity, recognized as a single thing. It's like the network that you always show in insurance, Brad. When you associate something properly, then you now can leverage that linking. You can leverage that brand for multiple domains. And if you look at
use it for your clients is what they do.
Exactly.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Tech.wayfair, like some of the stuff they're doing, there's other domains. There's like some brands that are in TV that do it. Like you'll see very clever usage of branded domains and the movement of backlink profiles and shifting of backlink profiles. There was a post that John Mueller had said that we will move all permanent signals through a redirect after a year or whatever. And I kind of laugh because it's a long time. I don't believe it takes them a year to do a lot of that. But they have confirmed that this is the kind of thing that they do. So as you build up your portfolio, as you build up networks, when you're in a market, if you identify a new segment, this kind of thing, these are the kind of things to think about and why it's important to have a strategy and a process rather than just throw tactics together like randomly and do SEO through, I have GMB here with some content here, and then I'm going to do some links over here, and it's all jumbled, and you're doing PPC on this. When you build a strategy, like there's a huge difference, and it's going to be part of September, between gimmick, tactics, and strategy.
Hey, Mike, can you say part of September one more time?
Part of September, dude.
Awesome.
There's something I'm doing with my voice here, maybe. But part of September.
It's all part of September.
Literally.
Wake me up when September ends.
The majority of the time that I talk to people, they're not working they're not working a strategy. They're just tossing tactics or gimmicks together, right? Take it.
That's all it is.
Course marketing.
Most events that I've been to are tossing random shit in a pot, just like shaking it up, and then having that silver bullet at the end that everyone's looking forward to.
Right.
having the keynote, whoever it might be Jimmy Kelly, it might be the Wolf of Wall Street,
Might be Joshua
it might
Fletcher.
it might be Joshua Fletcher. It's never bad Brad, I can tell you that much. No one gives
We're putting a lot
shit.
of weight on Josh's shoulders this year with the topic.
Luckily, he's got those.
I find that
shoulders. You know?
that's like there's so many keystones in my head for these processes and for marketing, and that's a huge, big keystone right there. If that's not done right, then you fail to solve.
Keystone or keynote? Is that the same thing?
Keystone
pipeline?
No, keystone, like the keystone in an arch. Like
the last one you put in, that's a little bit beveled and it holds the whole thing together, makes it strong.
Use a hammer.
I'm going upside. Yeah, I was upside down, but yeah, there we go. So
we're going to be winding up doing like the YMCA here pretty quick here.
Yeah. Can I be the Indian
talk
guy?
with my hands? Yeah. Talking about lowering your expense, what would be a solid profit margin on local SEO?
Should be any less than 50%.
Right, I agree.
Most of the time, like 80, 90%. I have seen people run it completely wrong, and it's like 10%. You know, where in a typical corporate setting, 10 to 20% is respectable. In our industry, it should not be ever be that low. So 80, 90%.
I think if you're hitting 50 to 60, you're doing pretty good if you're new, right? If you're newer or intermediate or whatnot, you really should not.
It kind of depends on how much of the organization you have built out too. You know, if you got a lot of the sales side and a bunch of support people that are doing a lot of the process task for you, you know, that's what starts to bring that down. Like if you're running like pretty much solo, or you've got a partner that does sales or something, like 80, 90, like you can get in that range pretty easy. And that's where you need to start, because as you build, there's going to be more expenses that come on board, and it's going to take a while to turn those expenses into profit centers.
And to be clear, 80, 90 when I think about the return, I'm talking about to the entity or to the corporation, to the business, not to the individual. So that's a good clarification. I think that's what Brad was thinking as well. So
if you bring a profit or a partner in, then it's going to split essentially. If you're splitting everything, you get an 80%, then you're gonna theoretically see 40%. But
I haven't taken 100% of profit or revenue in like freaking 5 or 6 years, dude. I don't really sell stuff by myself ever.
Well, I mean, if you look at partnerships from a strategic standpoint, theoretically, a piece of a lot of different things, which is why you bring a partner in or a group in, a piece of a lot of different things. The sum of those pieces should add up to, if you were doing it, way more than if you were doing it on your own and taking 100% of whatever you bring in. So,
because the number can be bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and really, I do believe that strengths and weaknesses are very important for us to all know about ourselves, and it's important to find people that have those strengths where your weaknesses are, man. It really is, dude.
And if, in our industry, it's much easier to look at arbitrage type of situations. You know, if you have, like Mike mentioned, we've been able to drive down link costs exponentially over the past 4 or 5 years, especially. And if someone comes to us and just needs links, it's essentially arbitrage. Okay, we'll give them to you for this. You're going to save a ton of money.
There's a cost on the labor, and bang.
Yeah. You know? We're going to make some money, and then, you know, we're going to have to pay these guys to accomplish what you need done, but everyone's going to make money in the long end. You're going to save money. We're going to make a little money. So it is landing page coming soon, or the website coming soon. It's up, but I'm not letting anyone know what it is yet. It's going to be the very, very last weekend of September 1st, or September 30th / October 1st. So mark your calendar and prepare to be there.
I think the emails start coming out next week. Yeah,
we're going to make some announcements next week. We're going to have we're going to be providing a ton of value. Mike has been deep in the lab with everything that's come out lately. Should be a lot of fun. Now it's going to be a culmination of all of that. So I should even learn some shit. You know, who knows?
I think we all will. I like these kind of get-togethers because it always ends up down the line meaning more revenue for everybody that is involved and that is out there making friends, honestly. And I think those are I love the workshop aspect. I love that people will walk away doing stuff. I like the fact that the networking's there, because especially in the workshop situation, it opens people up, and I've seen partnerships arise from those situations.
Well, the problem with just barraging people with information for 2 to 3 days, taking notes, soaking it all in. What happens is you get to the end of the event and they are so fucking jacked up. Like after every segment, you take a break at lunch, you take a break at dinner, they're like pumped. And then at the end of the event, they're still pumped. They get home, they're still a little pumped, but not quite as much. And then like a week goes by, they haven't done as much as they thought they would. 2 weeks goes by, 3 weeks goes, and they don't do anything. Where when you provide the workshop experience, they are able to take action almost. Not almost, actually instantaneously. You're able to start working on stuff. You could set stuff up and then continue working on those projects as you get home. So, every time we've done a workshop type setting, it's been exceptionally well received. So
yeah, and it'll be fun to see where the state of search is and how fast things are indexing and ranking at the time, because we've had people ranking overnight, and if it's in that kind of situation, where they're doing that with the right things, and it's fun to see that, or the next week or whatever, that people are like, okay, here we are, we're working, this is working. But we'll go back to the one I just had. This is a question for Fletch.
No, not currently.
All righty. And back to, how can I rank for the most handsome man in my location? Any insights? And actually, I'm going to take this question seriously, just because it's a topic and there's a lot of things that are inside of that topic that we can talk about from a ranking standpoint. I hope you are the most handsome man in your location, because you should always tell the truth and be forthcoming with how pretty you are in your marketing. But really though, like we were just talking about this. This might be a good time to talk about like what I mentioned with their like Google I/O presentation, and how they've rolled like everything into what they're calling MUM, which is multimodal search, and basically there's some interesting research papers on it. One of the things that the industry finally was like talking about recently is the seek to action and video and AI and voice, right? So YouTube has been tagging video with the seek to action for a while, and then about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, they rolled, like right before, it was the 30th, because it was the day before they announced the core update, right? They rolled into certain search locations new ways that they were tagging moments in video. And all of a sudden, like my moments changed, and I was able to pick up exactly how they were tagging it. Well, what they've announced is that with the video seek to action, you can now use that markup on your website if it's not YouTube, to have them actually go in and auto create these moments and understand like your video with essentially headers in your video, however you want to call them. But they're finding inflection, they're finding things. If you do some research on how they've done travel and how they've had their AI book hotels and different things without people knowing it was a robot they're talking to, you'll understand how much they understand about voice and inflection and emphasis, right? So this video seek to action is a good point here, because what you could do is you could create a video that you emphasize like the different aspects of being handsome along with your name, and then create copy on your website with that as well. And then images that reflect those moments in that video, or maybe even screenshots from that video embedded into that with proper optimization. And with the switches that they're making, and as they go forward, they'll keep making more of these switches away from, focusing and telling people just about BERT, but, oh, well, now we've rolled this into something that's 1,000 times faster than BERT. And use that to emphasize the relevance of your content and copy to the queries that you're trying to target. Like what was it? Most handsome man.
If I were going to do that, I'd get the EMD. I'd build out a quick entity just by hand, to be honest. I would get all the Google properties, YouTube, all that stuff, tie them all together, link back to the EMD, because this is a search term that like gets no volume. As long as there's no competition, no one else is going after it as well. Like I just looked it up in my town, and it's nothing. Like the .gov website for my town ranks for that right now. Have that in the title. Put a few headings on there. Put your pretty ass picture up there. Embed the YouTube video into your EMD, and wait for it to index, and you'll pop up there.
Dude, I'm looking at the query too. I'm about to go do this when I get
Yeah, I
the
know.
time
I think we're all
back,
gonna do it. By
dude.
the time. Luckily, you and I live in small ass towns. It might be.
Yeah, dude, I can do it in a day,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
I can take it in a day. So
Yeah. So
this is
well,
great.
this is kind of funny because I actually built a directory-ish style site for this several years back.
Right? Yeah.
For a term like this, right? It was
Yeah.
female based instead of male based,
Mhm.
but
Biggest
then,
ass in
yeah,
North
right.
Carolina.
Yeah, most junk in the trunk, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, but you have to look at the competition, and Google's going to serve up the thing that looks best for that sort of thing. And the other thing that I would then point back to is beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Like what that speaks to is not everybody's going to necessarily agree, and so there's going to be some mixed results in there, just because Google's going to try to understand the nature of this
and
query.
it's going to build the SERP. Like it will by nature build the SERP and create competition. It's just
like when we do the competitions at like an SEO event, like we always jack with the SERPs hardcore because they're still trying to learn that term. If you want to earn brownie points with your lady friend as well, rank her for most beautiful woman in city. That could be something. I do that for Christmas crap too, like the Secret Santa stuff. I'll do like Merry Christmas, and then whoever I've drawn their first name, make sure to use their first name and last name, and rank like a YouTube video for that. Just I'm like, go to this and search for it.
Yeah. Well, and then you can get creative too, and use something like the continental United States or something that shifts it a little bit so that it seems bigger than it actually is, right?
Yeah.
And just pull the query you want off of the copy. So
exactly.
Well, even for that, this is kind of just wherever your creativity may lie or whatever. But like how do you monetize that? Well, you rent it. You rent it and then let someone buy it as a gift and put the content they want on there during for a month or a year or whatever it might be. It's like it's a monetizable thing. Yeah, it's a gift, right? So
everything's
make it in monthly blocks and download that a list of emails from that specific city. Send them out. Look, for $10 this month, click here, rent it, send us your picture. Or $20.
If you tokenize those queries right there, you actually have a website that makes a very solid traffic generating website at a certain point, depending on what you do. If you start to pull in different things like certain types of B movies and different things, like you start to get to you start getting creative with like site generation and content generation that will pull in traffic that's topical and can convert in some spaces. So it's a good little this might be a good one. Most handsome man in Greensboro or most handsome woman in Greensboro for a contest for September.
Yeah.
So
she's a very handsome woman.
We had a question from Glenn. He said, "What is an EMD?" And an EMD in like our SEO lingo is an exact match domain, which means it is the same as an exact match query. So if you're targeting most handsome man in North Carolina, you would have most handsome man in northcarolina.com.
Yeah, could be .net, .org, whatever. But yeah, you typically want to with an EMD, you want to go for the top level domain .com, net, or org. But yeah.
And a PMD is partial match. So like if you're doing most handsome person.com would be a partial match to the query there. So
close, but not the same.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to go on to first input delay because that's our topic today. So we'll see if we get through all three. FID. So first input delay. Let's see. This is Brian Dean on what he wrote about it. So, and then I'll start talking about what I really think about it or whatnot. So,
tell you what I really think about it.
First input delay. Actually, I'm not going to read it because the text is too small or I'm zoomed in too much. So never mind. So first input delay essentially is when you interact, you click a button, how long it actually takes to have the action happen. Essentially, if there's a huge delay trying to submit a form, then that might be an issue. There's a huge delay clicking a navigational element and it just delays because of slow scripts or something. And you're sitting there, it's spinning, and then it goes, then that might be an issue. So it's basically the first input that they get. They're measuring how long that takes for people. We get right back to the same kind of concept of what are they actually looking at here. If they can tell you're submitting a form, if they can tell you're clicking a navigational element, what other data could be behind that they're collecting to build a profile for that website and for that user, right? There's a really interesting patent that they wrote on profiles and how that they might create user profiles and website profiles, and it is based around first input delay. Not directly, but the way that they're building it, they need an input, and they need to store that input, and then they need to analyze that input. And they talk about that they might take that data, build it over a certain amount of time. You know, okay, the user does this all the time on this website. They keep doing this thing on this website. They collect it for, you know, as they're building the initial scoring, and then they're talking about tossing the data out and coming back intermittently and random and collecting more data on that to make sure that the score is calculated the same, so there hasn't been changes. So we have to think about, like, it gets us into like crawl budget, and like this stuff should be making you think about how to make sure you're not wasting Google's time. If they're worried and patenting ways to not have to store data so that they can save money on storage and save money on transfer, then we need to make sure we're paying attention to that we're functioning all the time, because they're saying we're coming in randomly to check.
I very rarely function all the time.
I don't at all.
I very rarely function, you know, period. So.
And basically, if they're not wanting to store this data, like, then we should start thinking about like crawled not indexed pages, and really start worrying, like, if we're starting to see things where they're deciding not to like stick us in the index, that means they're not wanting, they've crawled our page and they've decided not to store our data. That should be a big factor for people to go, hey, I need to do something differently than what I'm doing right now, or I need to at least look into it, because over time that will affect how much crawl budget they give you, and they will stop coming back eventually, and they will start to no index things by themselves and drop things out of the index that they think is not worthwhile.
It's like a relationship. You have to provide value or she will not come back.
Absolutely do.
But if you provide enough value, then everywhere else you can do whatever you want, right? Isn't that what my therapist?
Yes, always.
I don't think that's what he said. Yeah.
So the last aspect that they're talking about for Core Web Vitals is largest contentful paint, which is essentially how long it takes to get the biggest piece of the website in. Like, you click a link, you go in, and how long does it take the majority of the content to load, right? So another speed-based deal right here. User experience, all of it says user experience and has a whole bunch of underlying, in my opinion. But what do you think about Core Web Vitals, Fletch? Like, are you concerned? Are you worried? Are you think it's going to show different
concern?
things?
No, but it certainly does paint a picture that appears to take things in that direction, right? And which is what I got sick of just doing spammy crap on the internet. I was like, you know, what am I really building as far as value here? Like, I'd like for all of my stuff to be stuff I'm somewhat proud of, right? That there's a reason for this thing to be there. And so to me, what it is just a way of approaching things at a more foundational level, which is the human level, right? That's where all the transactions and clicks that matter are going to be coming from a human. And so the closer Google can get to that, you know, they've got a call it a good enough, right? Spammy crap rules.
Clint for the win.
It can be fun for sure.
Yeah, no, there's a lot you can do with it, and there's a lot you can see with it because it's so fast and easy to do, right? Yeah.
That sums up Clint right there. Right there, dude.
He needs a shirt.
Every conversation I have with him, this is it right here, dude.
I can't tell if Clint likes me. Do I care? Probably not, because I don't like humans either, but I do get that vibe. Yeah.
So one thing that I think is important, if I told people, like, one thing that I tell them to take away is that render issues are a big deal. For a while now, I have seen them absolutely turning off relevance scoring when you are not rendering copy and content in the final render. if they know a human is not seeing that content, like when the final render is there, and there's not a way for them to see it, I won't say like drop down expansion, whatever. We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about issues where a block of your content for some reason is being rendered in a way where the final render that they pick up is covered. They will drop you for that score. And when you fix it on the next cache date, you will pull your rankings back up instantly. Tons of hard data on it. So it's really important. And if you look in the caches right now, you'll start to see more and more of final renders that are blocking content. I've run into like 5 times this week of like a blank overlay like in the cache blocking all of the content on the page on sites that I have seen tank. And it's not the speed stuff. I really think that's important to understand. Is like they understand like the user experience. If the user doesn't have that information on your website and they know the user doesn't have that information, they're getting to the point where they can make the decision to say, well, you're not relevant to this even though it's there in the code, because the user can't see it. And I'm seeing it in certain markets. I'm seeing it in caches. I'm seeing it all over the place. And I'm not saying it's rolled out everywhere. They definitely, with the broad cores, they roll out different things at different times, like we discussed with all the multimodal stuff. It's been here since August that I've seen, and then they rolled some of it out that I saw last August, like last week or the week before, right? So just understanding that they have the ability to gather all this data. They have the ability to say, okay, well, we have all these topical calculations. Now we're going to add these few metrics in and use that to score and rank. Well, this is why we get into some of the talk about why some of the tools, like if not used properly or they don't collect the right data, might not be efficient, even though a lot of people swear by them. They might not be the right thing for long-term growth for your business, right? And that's more stuff that we'll talk about in September. But yeah. So yeah, my rant's over on that. You know. But let's see.
We might be having it in a parking lot if we can't find a hotel. So I've got an idea. Let's just have it at my house.
There you go.
How many chairs do you think I can get in my office? You know, everyone can sleep here.
4.
There's like that scene in Dumb and Dumber where they're at the diner and Jim Carrey's character, he's like, wait, I have an idea. He's like, yep, I have an idea. And then they go over to Seabass's table. They're like, let's buy you guys a beer on us. And then they go up and then they get to the register and take all the junk and run out.
You sure Seabass said that? Yeah.
He's like, yeah. Over here. Yeah.
He's like, so the guy's got away with it scot-free? No. Later in the movie, they caught up with him and slit his throat. We have the same taste in movies, apparently.
Yeah.
So crawled not indexed, like I would prefer you do not create pages that end up crawled not indexed in the first place, is the way I would absolutely handle it. But I do not want pages. It's part of technical SEO. It's part of audits. Like if you go in and you find pages that they're not, for some reason, if it's you doing it, you don't want it in the index, you don't want it followed, but they're crawling, like you need to clean up where they're moving around on your website, because it affects decisions they make in the long term. They're not going to waste money on something.
Search Console. Yeah.
They're not going to waste money with stuff they don't think is quality. And quality is relevant to the market you're in and the queries that you're in. That's where you need to be focusing. What's quality there?
When Fletch was mentioning spam earlier, what do you think? Because if you look at it from a value perspective, let's say that there's absolutely no one in a number of particular locations that serve whatever niche you're doing, say citing or whatever. This is more SEO philosophy. Is it still spam if you provide a valuable service where you can't get any other solutions in that niche? So you're not knocking down the mom and pops with your spam listings, and you put up a list. Either a listing or more of a mass page cookie cutter style, either site or page. You put that up there and you connect them with someone in a neighboring town that can help them and that is willing to drive over. Typically I do that through networks, right? Because they've got all the connections. Is it still spam at that point? Of course, Chicago, there's a plethora of people there that can serve that community. But maybe not in, bumfuck Idaho or something,
Well, even even if there is a bunch of people that can serve it there and you believe that you offer the best solution, is it spam?
I have no
to make
idea.
sure?
When I'm sending it to a network, I could give, I
Well,
have
no, I'm
no
saying,
idea.
yeah, no, I don't either. I'm not saying that I sit
Yeah.
there and think about that on all the campaigns, but realistically, is it ever spam if the user gets what they want? Really? Like, can it ever really
If they're
be
connected
considered
with someone.
Like
not
spam
quality?
spam is really based on value, and
Yeah,
value is
it
a
is.
human concept. So perceived value, actual value. As long as you're creating those two things, it's not spam. Even if it's just a bunch of garbledygook, but there's a
Absolutely.
link there or a phone number there, and you call it, and it's like, yeah, we can take care of you, sure thing, right? But you likely will have to do a little more than garbledygook just to get somebody to say this is somewhat trustworthy, and I know who I'm calling, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
that's why. Go ahead, Brad.
I was just going to say, it seems like the crappier the landing page, as long as you don't have garbledygook, lorem ipsum or something up there, A+, siding repair, and you've got a picture of a house in the background. It's just got a phone number and, call us today and the business name and maybe a picture down below. That will convert like crazy because they'll see it.
Yeah,
this is why I
it's like the old affiliate hip hop that was on Wikifire back in like 2007 or something or 8. The dude wrote it. He recorded it. I always have I tried to find it for years and I can't find it. But he literally says, I sit in my mom's garage, work on a site that's arbitrage, but that's why they click. The site looks like a third grader's art collage. That's why they click. The site looks like shit. And it's always been the case. Like some of the best performing landing pages that I've ever like produced myself had taken 20 minutes, have had like a block of text, but it got the right traffic on it, and there was nothing to do except go do what people wanted to do based on the traffic.
We've generated tons of rehab calls with an eagle in the background. Like,
yeah, dude. Bro, that lander got used by so many other companies too.
Yes, it did.
Funny, dude.
Yeah,
funny.
And Clint mentioned lorem ipsum ranking with that. Yeah, I agree. It does rank from a conversion standpoint. I'll just spin someone else's content and throw it up. Mike got bars for days. Yeah.
I'm the bar ice cream bitch. I got lots of bars.
Dilly Bar.
That's a good song.
Dairy Queen.
5 million surprise toys.
That's good. Yeah.
About ice cream.
You like the Dairy Queen food or just the ice cream?
So we had a Dairy Queen in the little town of Missouri where I was born.
Yeah.
And
we had a bunch in Indiana.
It was built in like 40s or 50s, family owned. And so they actually were before Dairy Queen like was corporate, and so they had their own stuff, and they had their chili cheese burgers and chili cheese dogs are still my favorite thing that I've ever ingested, like bar none. So when I think of Dairy Queen, it's like I go to a Dairy Queen that's like kind of corporate and nice now. It's like, this isn't the Dairy Queen I grew up with,
No, it's clean,
Yeah, I don't have to sit outside on a railroad tie there,
Yeah, exactly.
There's not
ants
waiting
that reminds
for me
me of
to
the Tim
drip
McGraw
ice
song.
cream
I
on
had a
it.
barbecue stain on my white t-shirt.
Yeah.
Me in that mini skirt. Yeah, that reminds me of Dairy Queen. Yeah, and the county fair.
Yep.
So
now we need to make Dairy Queen relevant to SEO somehow. So the Dairy Queen core web vitals.
Yeah. Best.
I'm sure they're working on it.
Best burger place with sticky floors. We could rank them. I think.
There you go. Sticky floors. Sawdust.
Floors.
Advice to recover from 500 server errors. The site tanked to half traffic due to all the 500 server errors. Have you fixed the 500 server errors?
Fix them, resubmit them to index, and fingers crossed.
Yeah, and or fix them and build some links. I mean, just fix them and make sure they're not going to happen again, because when you come back and you keep doing it, it's going to become more of a problem.
We have had the same issue with devs as well.
It happens.
Yep, especially on custom CMSs, it can get rough.
But yeah, if you make sure they're fixed, and then have you noticed, like, are you monitoring your crawl? Like, have they like lowered how much they're on your site?
It can take a while though.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's got to be crawl. Clint is hilarious.
He's on one today.
Yeah, he is. He's hating all the peoples.
That's
but yeah, no. you need to just fix it and just move forward. I mean, it's like a lot of what happens in SEO right now. You need to fix it, correct it, do it better, and move forward.
Keep doing content that does not have 500 errors on it, and get those indexed as well.
Like, especially if it's happening in certain sections, there's just like a lot of ways it can be even more detrimental than just that. So just fix it and don't worry and move forward.
Be happy.
And monitor how much they're on your site and make sure they haven't just completely ignored you, and just check all the normal stuff. Make sure they're not dropping your quality, is what we'll call it, that they care about your storage. I think that, is there anything else with the core web vitals that we didn't? I don't think there is. But the point is, like, if you go on the developer site, the 3 things we just talked about, those are 3 things that they mention, but they also mention a whole bunch of other crap that they're not going to mention. They also have, replaced the AMP stuff with signed signature exchange. There's just a lot of shifts that they make. And so it's important to just kind of read the data and make sure that you're reading between the lines, because they do not tell us the truth ever.
The truth.
It's important to remember. The
truth. I need the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Ah,
I gotcha.
You owe me a Dairy Queen.
I do. Yeah. Come on down. We got
and the last thing was
Carolina somewhere.
Seek to action. Don't forget the seek to action if you're using other video platforms on your websites, because they absolutely do a great job of detecting it based on volume and other audio aspects of voice. So utilize it to strengthen your copy, kind of like we've talked about utilizing imagery to strengthen your copy. You just want your content to not just be copy.
Yeah, multimedia is really, from a human engagement standpoint, it's going to usually trump the content anyway. Like the
multimodal is where they're going, which is
it's just
it's multimedia.
Yeah,
it's funny. When Josh Baginski was in Greensboro one time, video got brought up, and he said, if you want to increase I experimented with it in the past and knew it anyway, but he ran a test on his landing page for some course that he was doing, or membership or something. He put a video walking through the members area, and his shit went up like a huge percentage, like 500% or something like that. But throwing a video at the top and bottom can, vastly improve the amount of conversions that you receive, with a huge call to action. So video can be amazing. Everyone just hates freaking making them. So I don't like making them. I don't like looking at myself. That's why I hate these things. I like myself almost as much as Kyle hates people.
Makes you look even taller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to go like this. So I look shorter and angry. Yeah.
I'm the bar ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to jump in and look what you're talking about over there, because I never pay attention to that. And the stuff that I like in markup, I always am just quiet about. I need to follow what you're doing a little bit more, bro. Clint.
Have you read this one, Fletch? How Google works?
Yeah.
I had not. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
It's the most recent one. I guess it has an extra chapter in there or something. But I pumped through the first chapter in the morning, because I had just finished everything off. At last, you have a neck.
At least you have a neck.
Oh, at least. I thought he said at last.
At last. Yeah. Those traps finally came down.
Boy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, interesting. But it was written in like 2016, but you can kind of tell like where they're going and stuff. And I think the further and further and the better and better that they get at the quantum computing and AI, which feed off of each other and improve. We make fun of the Google AI as being like as smart as a 3-year-old, but pretty soon it's going to exponentially continue to learn.
3-year-olds grow up pretty fast,
especially when all they're doing is sitting there chewing data,
honing on it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's gonna creep up on us a lot faster than what we're
that's expecting. Been kind of the over the last year or so is kind of getting into AI and understanding like what it's about, how how it works. Like there's a guy named Lex Friedman, Fridman.
Yeah, I've heard the name.
Yeah, he runs a really cool podcast. That's his background. And he's done some pretty neat things with neural networks and understanding kind of certain human behaviors and how
Yeah.
he does a good job of talking about it. So that kind of opened the door to me starting to play like with Python again, right? Which I haven't coded.
That's something I've been
since,
telling
like,
myself I
2004.
might do at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a side note, but yeah, AI is definitely influencing the way Google understands things. Or understands
first concept of AI came out in the
things.
50s, right?
It's been a long time. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
exactly
and look at how long it took to get to this point, and then how much quicker it's gone in the past year, 2, 3, 4
kind
years.
of reach critical mass a little bit with computer speeds being what they are.
Yeah, it hit a wall. But then with quantum computing, it's going to just excel it forward.
Yeah.
My wife must have left because my wife left.
There's an unhappy dog on the other side of the door. Yeah.
No. He comes to my office because he can see out and see the whole neighborhood from here. So
he's all mad that you took his view, bro.
Yeah.
He's still got it. Yeah.
No, but you didn't let him in. He's all pissed off. You're mean.
He's in. He was in. That's the problem. I shut the gate so he can't even get upstairs. But then when he gets upstairs, opens the door and does that. So thanks,
all right, we hit that time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. On the dog SEO core web vital note, first input delay, FID, largest contentful paint, LCP, and cumulative layout shift, CLS. I just want to see. Bye.